I remember waking up a lot that morning, every couple of hours, as if there was something I was anticipating, or as if something was going to happen. And I would wake up to the radio and I would fall back asleep. And it was Boston sports radio, but they would talk about my Yankees and whatnot. And certainly we were entering the fall. You know, the Red Sox, the Yankees were very much in the mix. I was in Boston, and I'm a diehard baseball fan. Of course, my Yankees. And I just remember some sort of interruption happening as I started to get up. I was pretty much an early riser, but, come around 8 o'clock, when you're just kind of laying there in bed, you have maybe a 9 o'clock class that you have to get up for. But I would just kind of lay there, and I remember the sun would just fill that room up. And as I said, I forgot to pull down the shades. And I just remember the radio guys. There was a panic, there was a confusion, and you're not quite tuned into what's happening. And they had said that there was an accident in New York down at the World Trade Center, that it appeared as though a plane had crashed into one of the towers. And I just remember, so surreal, like, wait, what did I hear? And of course, I'm old enough to remember, the first bombing in the 90s at World Trade Center. My father used to work there. I grew up in North Jersey. So many of my friends work down on Wall Street and down in the financial district. And I just remember feeling so far away. And then, of course, the next plane, then you're hearing about Logan Airport, which is right in Boston. Then you're hearing, the Capitol building. What is happening? Are we under attack? Is this where it ends for all of us? I don't know. I turn on the television, and even some 20 years ago, it wasn't quite as updated as we have, the luxury of today. You turn it on. I mean, it is up to the minute, everything that is happening, right? There was just mass confusion and the collapse of the towers. I couldn't even call home. The lines were down. I remember knowing that my first cousin, Constantine, we call him Gus because Konstantinos in Greek is Constantine. So Gus is, you hear a lot of Gus's in the Greek world. They're generally Constantines. So we had the same first name of our grandfather. And my mother's first name is Constance. So he was Gus, and I sort of grew up Dean. Konstantinos, Dean, was the shorter version of my name. And my cousin Gus was handsome, smart guy. And my grandparents came here 100 years ago with nothing. Gus's father, my mother's eldest brother, Leon, really sort of raised my mother and her brothers and sisters, 6 of them, in a restaurant. My grandmother was a young widow. And so Gus was the first of us to graduate college and work hard and get a job. And we used to go there for the Super Bowl. He sort of taught us we had to like the Yankees and the Giants, maybe the Jets if you choose, but Yankees definitely. And we all just wanted to be just like him because he was the eldest cousin, really. He became a partner at Sandler O'Neill quite recently to the day, and he was probably just a little younger than I am now. Then he had two young children. He was on the 104th floor of the South Tower, so I believe the other tower was hit first. And from what I've been told, they had instructed them not to evacuate, not to leave, just to stay, and everything was going to be fine. And he was a very calm, chill guy. And his wife, Audrey, my other cousin, of course, through the marriage, he had even gotten on the phone with her. We're fine. We're going to be okay. Everything's cool. We're good over here. We'll get out safely, and we're going to be fine. And then the plane hit the other tower, his tower. And there's so much, as there should be, sort of secrecy around like what exactly happened. There's so many first cousins, my aunt and uncle, and my cousin Gus, his brother and sister, and his wife are, of course, have far more of the intimate sort of timeline as to exactly what happened. And but in the Greek culture, your first cousin, that's that's your brother. That's a part of you. It's really sort of indescribable, that connection that you have, right? We grew up with each other. He was much older, but we spent our summers upstate New York, and his children are grown and married now, and such a wonderful guy. And I just remember trying to call, and then we finally got through, and really for days and days and days trying to get through. Finally, you get through, and they just felt he was missing. He just might have been missing, in the melee. A lot of people got out. He got out. He's going to show up. Everything's fine. It's just crazy. There's, so much debris and chaos that he'll turn up. And so he never did. And he's taken from us so unfairly, and from his children, and from his wife, and his folks, and his brother and sister. And he had so much to live for, and he had built such a wonderful life, the American dream that my grandparents had always envisioned for us. I was stuck in Boston. I couldn't get out. It's pretty locked down, with Logan and everything that had happened there. And like I said, I was about to, in fact, there's a video of me doing Hedwig in late August, but into early September. And you could see on the old VHS tape the date, and it says something like September 5th, September 6th, 2001. Days before this, I was on stage still doing what I do. And we had just gotten back to school. And it's that first week of school or so where you're kind of just getting used to things, which group you're in as far as your training with, all your acting classes, music, lessons, dance, whatnot. And there was just so much confusion. And I just remember thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing here? I'm training to be a performer, an actor, singer. What is that going to contribute, you know, down the road? Like, what does it mean? You know, what am I going to do? Like, the world has completely changed forever now. Of course, the shock, you know, and the intense feelings, and the rage and the hate was there, you know, and you have these impulses like, you know, you want to go to battle, you want to kill these guys that did this. And you know, you calm down, you try to be there for your family. um, you have to get back to work, you know. um, I was the only one of my whole orbit, and I'm friends with everybody that had, you know, that sort of impact in his inner family like that. You met people that were, you know, affected. Certainly, Sandler O'Neill was essentially wiped out that morning, and you meet people later on that were affected equally, and even more so. You meet first responders. Um, you know, there's so many stories, so much. It was just all over the news all the time, and it was really hard for me to get back to my training. It was really hard. I had a very difficult time getting back to my work, and but I know my cousin would have wanted me to push forward, and you slowly start to realize, maybe what I'm doing is the best thing I can contribute, because it's something that I'm so passionate about. It's something I'm pretty good at, and maybe I can, when we can heal, you know, be a part of that healing, provide people with, you know, a wonderful night at the theater, an escape, um, that suspended like belief that we, you know, experience when we see a concert, excuse me, or theater. And I barely got through that year, but I had my 5-year plan. I was still chipping away. I did not showcase. I barely graduated the program, but I got through. I got a big apprenticeship that summer, at the Williamstown Theater Festival, coveted spot. Half my apprentice group became like movie stars, Chris Pine and like all these guys. I booked Rent that summer. I went on to star in Rent, you know, the next year on the road. And I tried to celebrate my cousin's life, and but it tore my family apart pretty much forever, you know. Rent was amazing. Shortly after that, the American Idol experience happened for me. Um, and that really helped to bring everyone back together again, because if you remember, it was so big. It was such a big thing. 2005, I mean, there were 25 million people a night watching it, 3 nights a week. You know, it was, people would race home, and of course, you know, my cousins and everyone, it was a wonderful escape, I know, for everybody to just follow me. And it was on for months and months and months. It wasn't like on for a few weeks like it is now. It was on forever. And I think that really helped us heal, for sure. But we'll never, you know, we'll never forget.
You could have gotten a lot of sympathy had you come forward on American Idol about that horrible loss your family experienced with Gus, and you didn't. Why?
Yeah. I remember them doing the at home episodes, and they came home and they met my mother and my father had been sick for many years with Parkinson's disease and spinal stenosis, and he had been essentially bedridden for years and just was not the same man anymore. And I also chose not to really show him as a part of that because he just physically was just not the same man, you know? And I don't know, I think that the real artist in me, the trained like performer, did not want to make it about that and didn't want people's sympathy. I didn't want that to be a part of my story. I feel like I've always had to be the guy that goes out of his way to, when you see a friend's show, you're the first one at the stage door to tell them all how amazing they were and how great the show was and how much you loved it. Because I feel like I've always been the guy that they're like, they've wanted you to be a jerk, you know? So maybe, I don't know, they can feel better about their stuff. But I didn't want them to feel like I was using that as a part of my publicity or something. Thinking back, I really would have loved to have made Gus a part of my story, because I think it really was something that was just such a huge part of my life and impacted me so greatly. And my father as well, making him a part of that. And looking back, you know, you had like people in trailers like making spaghetti and mayonnaise. Like, I mean, I should have, you know, and people were like, oh, well, we have to vote for them because they're poor, or we have to vote for this one because they didn't have parents. And, you know, we all have our stories, right? We all have our part of who our past is, you know, what makes us who we are, of course. I just chose not to make it a part of my journey, but sometimes I wish I had, for sure.
Did they ever recover Gus's remains?
There was, from what I know, um, there were some things. There was his wallet, I believe, a work case filled with some of his personal things that they were able to identify as his, an identification card and license, whatnot. I honestly don't have. The Greeks are, they're just so private. They're up in your business, but when it comes to like the immediate family, like if it were my brother and sister, my first cousins, as close as we are, they might not know exactly those details. So it was just none. It wasn't for me to know. But I imagine there was some. There was something. There was something. They have crosses that were made from remains and little things like that. You know, we lost beautiful Greek church down there that took really the last 2 decades to rebuild. It's just so much red tape and political reasons and things. But I think only just in the last year or so did they open the doors to that church. And only a year ago did I go down there for the first time. As you know, I have a home in New Jersey now, but I've had a place in New York City for, you know, over 20 years. I just couldn't bring myself to go down there and see the memorial. I've seen his name. I tune in every September 11th, and I listen for his name to be called. And it just immediately brings you right back to that horrible, horrible morning. But, you know, it's interesting. We, in many ways, came together as a country thereafter. We had, you know, the Yankees were so in the mix in the World Series, and we just needed them to win. And they end up losing. Mariano Rivera, of all people, blowing a save to the Diamondbacks and losing on a walk-off the World Series. But of course, you know, an amazing run as a part of that late 90s and early 2000s dynasty of theirs. But interestingly enough, my Giants were out of it, but the Patriots, I was in Boston. I used to get to go see games at Fenway, and there was something, and Bill Belichick, of course, former Giants defensive coach, part of the 86, you know, greatest team of all time, if you ask me, Giants with Lawrence Taylor and Bill Parcells and all of them. Of course, he was coaching the Patriots. They had not won a Super Bowl yet. Drew Bledsoe goes down, you know what, halfway through the season, and the 6th round draft pick, you know, matriculates to the starting quarterback slot, and he never relinquished that position back to Drew Bledsoe. And there was something about that Patriots team. Now, all my Giants and all my New Yorkers are going to be like, what? What is he talking about over there? But it's AFC, you know, they really were like America's team. I was rooting for them. They had the red, white, and blue. They had, you know, Tom Brady, you know, the underdog, and he looked like a, you know, Calvin Klein model. And, you know, they had all these scrappy players, and they had this incredible run to a championship. And I just remember being in Boston, you know, a few months later, they win the Super Bowl. And thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people flood the streets everywhere. And of course, what is there? 500 colleges in a 5 mile square area. Young people everywhere, 20 somethings flooding the streets, going crazy. We're jumping on the back of, you know, fire trucks, and there was just something about it. And, you know, I lived over in the Back Bay in Boston, Berklee College of Music, Boston Conservatory, so many musicians everywhere. And I remember the fire trucks were trying to push through to disperse the crowds. And this kid out his window, you know, starts chugging on his guitar, and you could hear him checking his amp. And I was like, what is he about to? Sure enough. People are going crazy. I still have chills thinking that. And my friends jumping on the back of the fire trucks, and it was like we did it. It was like we won something back. And I don't know, I just couldn't wait to get home to my family eventually. And I don't know, I know I've been talking all over the place, but I don't get to talk about this. I haven't really articulated my feelings to anyone in 20 years about that. It's just something we don't really talk about anymore. You know, we never really talked about it as a family. And with Trump and all of this, my family is so divided. And we just have very different point of views when it comes to, you know, politics and war and who the enemy is and whatnot. And, you know, you hear all of these awful conspiracies too, and it tears you up to think that people really think that. You know, it's just so unfair. You know, so many families destroyed forever. So many children that won't ever know their families, their fathers, their mothers. their aunts and uncles and whatnot, and just stolen, just just stolen from us all. Everyone felt it. You didn't have to have a first cousin, a brother, a mother. You know, we all felt it as New Yorkers. You know, it was I don't know.
So sorry for your loss, and I really am grateful for you sharing, because you say you have not before. So I'm very honored that you chose this platform to do that, and so I thank you, and my love to your family.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening. It felt good to get that out, you know, and it's so important that we remember, you know, and just how fragile life can be. You know, now I have a daughter. I have a 9-year-old. Um, we've talked about um, September 11th. In fact, she's basically the age I was when, you know, the astronauts went up, and we lost all the astronauts, including Christy McCullough. I remember watching it on television in the same library that she studies in the same elementary school. Um, and it just right on the screen in front of all of us. And I can imagine that's what it was like for a lot of young people that saw that. And I don't want her to ever really experience anything like that. But um, you know, it teaches you a lot about life and love, and you know, what's precious. But I've thrived in my work and my career since then, and I've always tried to honor my cousin and dedicate, you know, projects and things to him, and include my first cousins and second cousins in things that I do. And I'm so glad that we had that opportunity to bring people together, at least for a little while, with my journey on American Idol and Rock of Ages and my records and whatnot. And you know, we'll never forget any of them. So thank you, Shelley. Thank you for doing this. You guys are always so good to me, and I'm glad I could be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you.